Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Cowboy Survival. I'm going to talk about something a little different today. You know, we all have our get-home bags and our go bags and our survival kits and all the kinds of kits and the tools that we've got for survival. It occurs to me that not everybody is as familiar with their gear as they might be. And not everybody is aware of some of the hidden dangers that is buried inside their backpacks. So I thought what we do tonight is just for the sake of those who are getting started, and maybe for the sake of some youth that are watching this, I thought we might talk about some of the hidden dangers. Now, this is going to be useful to all of us because it's going to remind us that we have to be careful and cautious with the items that we have in our bags. So, with that, let's just get into it. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about what I call bullets and blades. Now, I think we can all take it for granted, and we all realize that knives and guns are weapons, and they can be dangerous if mishandled. Some people aren't quite aware of some of the other dangers associated with the way we do it. So I'm not going to talk about the guns themselves. I don't believe guns are dangerous. I believe the people who use the guns can be dangerous, can be negligent, can be foolish, but I don't believe the gun itself is dangerous. However, a lot of people will store magazines inside their vehicles and inside their get-home bags that are in their vehicles. So why are these dangerous? They're just inert objects, right? Well, yes, in a way. And some people might say, well, you know, if they don't have my gun, they can't put that magazine in the gun. Well, that's true. But you know what? They can take that bullet right out of that magazine, and they can put that bullet in anything. Any gun that'll handle a 9mm bullet. There you go, right there. Now, one of the things that I think we have to recognize and acknowledge is that car thefts and car break-ins are at an epidemic level in our society. Doesn't matter where you are. It could be in a big city. It could be in the country. It could be in a really nice Christian community. There are a lot of break-ins going on. And when they get into your vehicle, even if your gun isn't there, this magazine might be. And they can take this magazine and they can get several bullets that they can then go use to commit a crime, to hurt somebody else. So let's not keep these things where criminals can get them. Keep them on your person. If you're going to carry a gun, if you need an extra magazine, carry an extra magazine pouch with you and have it on your belt as well. But don't leave these things in the vehicles. I think that's just dangerous. Let's talk about knives. There are a lot of different kinds of knives. This is a survival knife from Holtzman. It is the Bloodline. It's a pretty wicked weapon, let me tell you. Now, a novice who doesn't know what they're doing with this thing might say, oh, well, that's cool. Let me look at that thing. Grab this and pull it. And if they hold this like this, and they pull that blade, they're going to slice their index finger off. Let me show you. This knife, there's the blade. That blade is sharp as a razor. I can shave with that thing. That blade, if you pull that thing, you pull this and you yank that blade out of that, you're going to slice right into your finger and maybe slice your whole finger off. That's a hidden danger. Now, I'm not saying don't carry these knives. I think these knives are great. You need them in your bags. But we need to be aware that some stranger using it, some novice who might pick this up, not understanding where that blade is and how sharp that blade is, could hurt themselves. So, if you're going to have kids, make sure they understand, don't touch these things. If you're going to get one of these things, get familiar with it. One of the rules for all of these items is that if you're going to have these items, you need to take them out, you need to use them, you need to get familiar with them so that when you need them, it's not the first time you've touched it. Okay? You need to have these things. Now, another kind of blade you have to watch is a hatchet. This is a Grand Force Bruck hatchet. I really like this thing. This is one of the best hatchets made on the market, I think. But the thing is, when you get this thing, it's sharp. It's for chopping wood. It's not, you're not going to cut down a mighty oak with this thing, but that's not what it's for, right? It's for camping. It's for chopping up small wood, splitting small wood. So what's dangerous about this? Well, first of all, it's just dangerous because it's sharp. But the real danger of this thing is that people don't know how to use it. They'll hold a log like this and try to split that log. They're liable to cut their thumb off if they're not careful, or their index finger. Another thing is when people are chopping on logs, they'll be chopping and this thing will glance off a log. You won't get a good, maybe you're trying to make some kind of a point on the end of something or whatever, and it glances off. And I've seen people, the way they're doing it, they're holding it sort of between their legs. It glances off. That blade hits them right in the shin, and it can break your shin. It can cut you really, really badly. You can do a lot of damage. So these things can be very dangerous if used improperly. Make sure you're using these things safely. Make sure you know how to use it. Practice using it before you go into the field. You want to know how to use this thing before you go into the field so you don't have an accident. If you're going to have an accident with it, have it at home where you're close to the EMTs and close to the hospital. You don't want to have an accident with this thing out in the woods. So there's your bullets and blades. So a couple of things to think about related to the hidden dangers associated with those. Next thing I want to mention is something that a lot of you might scoff at, but it's the plastic garbage bag. Now, we recommend that people keep these in their bags. They're useful for a lot of things. You can use this for a water storage or water toting. You can use this plastic bag as shelter. You can use this plastic bag as a poncho. You can use this plastic bag to store your wet clothes in. If your clothes get wet, you need to store them to keep them from getting other things wet. You can store it in here. You can store dry things in here. If you've got dry clothes and you don't want them to get wet because it's raining, you can store it in here. This can carry stuff. It's a great item to have. Doesn't weigh much, goes in your bag. But, here's the part. Plastic is non-permeable and air cannot pass through it. If somebody puts this over their head without cutting a hole in it, they can suffocate. Now, most of us wouldn't do that. You know, that's not. But what if you say, "Well, I've got to take somebody captive, and I want to put this over their head"? That's kind of a far-fetched idea, but you don't want to do that. You could kill them, right? Kids are always doing stupid stuff with plastic bags. Be very careful with this. It's a hidden danger, something you don't think about. I want to talk about flammable stuff. Now, there are a few things in our bags that are flammable. I'm thinking of Firestarters. This is just a plain old cigarette lighter. But these things have liquid fuel in them. And so you take you start that little lighter. These things can be banging up against hard items in your bag. They can crack, the top can come off, and that fuel will leak into your bag. That can be really dangerous. It can make your bag itself flammable into a torch. Be very careful. I think these things should be in your bag and be stored upright, not on their side, not upside down. Make sure they're stored upright because that will help them to keep from leaking. Another kind of unthought of thing that we don't think about a lot of is our fire starters. A lot of these fire starters are soaked in accelerant. I use lamp oil for mine. Some people actually use lighter fluid. Again, these things can have fumes associated with them, and if they start to burn, they will burn for 7 minutes or so. These are the kind of things that can mess up your bag really quick, right? If they can. So be careful with these. Keep them stored. Keep them in an airtight container like I've got here, a nice screw-on airtight container, so very little chance of these things catching fire. Lithium batteries. These battery charges, this is a 25,000 milliamp one I picked up off Amazon. I've got several of these things around the house. Now, these things don't typically catch fire, but we have read stories about them catching fire, right? And particularly in the summer, we're going to be storing these things. If you store this in your car where your get-home bag is, maybe you got one of these in your get-home bag, you put this in your car gets 120, 140 degrees about noontime in the middle of the summer, these things could light up. And once one of these things catches fire, you're not putting it out. All you can do is somehow get it out of the vehicle, if you can, and watch it burn. You're not going to put it out. And if it's in your vehicle and you're not going to get to it, your whole vehicle could burn up. These things can catch fire. I would not store one of these in a bag that's going to be in your vehicle during the summer. Summer months are coming. Let's think about those things. Let's think about the things that are in your vehicle that could spontaneously combust. This is one of them. Hidden danger. Be careful. We'll talk about something else battery powered. It's your flashlight. Now, what's dangerous about a flashlight? Well, not a lot. But these flashlights today are so ridiculously bright. This flashlight is No Light Warrior 3. This thing has about 2,500 lumens. I turn this thing on. It blanks out the whole screen. See that? Okay. These things are really, really dangerous if somebody looks at them and it goes off. So somebody, I can't make this thing go on. What's wrong with it? They look at it like this and hit that light and bam, hits them in the eyes. And it could temporarily blind somebody. You can burn a retina with one of these things. These things have sensors in them to automatically power down the intensity of the light after a minute. And the reason for that is the intensity of this light can actually catch stuff on fire. You've got to be careful with these really, really bright lights. 300 lumen light, I'm not just going to catch anything on fire. You still don't want to look into it when you turn it on. But these 2500 lumen lights, you better be careful with them because they could do some serious eye damage if you're not careful. Pay attention to these lights. Never, ever look into the light. Okay. A couple of things that I don't have examples of, but I want to talk about. One of them is personal information that you might have in your bag. You might have a card with things like social security numbers and phone numbers and bank account numbers and your driver's license number and numbers that you think are important, information you think is important. You may have that stored in your bag. Remember, break-ins, people get your bag, they get your personal information. Don't keep personal information in those bags. Keep it in your wallet, on your person, maybe in your cell phone. Do not keep those kind of items written down on a piece of paper in your bag, okay? Just like you don't ever write down passwords to your computer, don't ever write down personal information and store it, put it on a piece of paper that's going to be stored in your vehicle. I think that's just plain dangerous because it sets it up for thieves to get a hold of that information. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 things that I would never put in my bag. The first one I've got pictured here. It is a nasopharyngeal airway tube. These things, if you go to Amazon and look at their first aid kits and their emergency kits, every one of them has one of these tubes in there. Okay, now what you do with these tubes, if somebody's having trouble breathing through their mouth, maybe their tongue's swollen up or something, you're supposed to take that tube, shove it up somebody's nose. It's supposed to go up through the nasal cavity, down into their throat. Simple, right? No, it's not simple. It's dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing with that nasopharyngeal airway tube, you can do some serious damage to somebody's nasal passage. You can do a lot. You can cut tissue. You can damage tissue. You know, it's just not a safe thing to do if you don't know how to use it. My general rule of thumb is I'm not going to be putting anything into somebody else's body if I'm not trained how to do that. It's one thing to put a pressure bandage on. It's another thing to put ointment on a cut or a burn. It's one thing to put on a tourniquet or to put on a chest vent or a compression bandage. Those things I'm capable of doing, and I've practiced enough to know how to do them. However, if I haven't been trained to stick a tube up somebody's nose and into their throat, if I haven't been trained to intubate somebody, if I haven't been trained about how to put that blood clotting powder into a wound, let me tell you something, I could do serious damage. So, general rule of thumb, I wouldn't carry anything that you're going to have to, you or somebody else is going to have to put into your body or somebody else's body that requires skill to do that, unless you are trained. Now, it's not a bad idea to go get some real heavy-duty first aid training to learn how to do that kind of field medic stuff. But if you're not trained to do it, I don't think I'd even be tempted by having that item in my bag. Now, some people argue, well, you have it in the bag in case somebody's around that knows how to do it. How do you know they're trained? I think what you need to do is think about the things that are in your bags. Do you really want to have those things? Do you want to have scalpels in your bag? I'm not going to keep scalpels in my bag. I'm not going to keep anything in my bag that I'm going to be putting into somebody else's body other than things like ibuprofen or aspirin, right? Now, 2 final items. These are items I wouldn't put in any bag under any circumstances, and you've heard me talk about them before. The first one is the multi-purpose spork. I hate these things. This one I got out of the Harbor Freight survival kit when I reviewed the 21-piece Ozark Trail survival kit. They had one. The handle was orange, but it was the same item. What's dangerous about a spork? Well, if you haven't seen it, you pull this thing out, this thing's got a knife blade on it, and that knife blade is sharp. Let me tell you. So I can imagine a scenario where somebody grabs this handle. Hey, hey, that's great. Now let's pull the spoon out. You do that, somebody's going to get cut. If they're holding this thing like this, it's going to cut their thumb, or if it's facing up, it's going to cut their finger really, really deep and badly. You're going to cut through tendons, flesh. It's going to be ugly, it's going to be messy, and it's going to make that hand unusable because of the damage you're going to do to it. I think this is dangerous. There's not even a warning on this handle, by the way, that this handle is removable. Okay? Oh, that's removable. Boom! Oh my goodness, there's a knife in there. I guess if you need a James Bond tool. I'm not going to keep this in any of my bags. I only keep it around so I can demonstrate it in these videos and talk about it. I think that's a dangerous item. Next dangerous item I would never put in a bag, and that is this metal tube. What's dangerous about a metal tube? This is what's called a telescoping fire bellow. You pull this thing out. It's a metal tube. It's hollow. I don't know if you can see there. It's hollow. And what you're supposed to do is you put the big end, the little end down near the fire, or maybe just right near the coals, and you blow. Sounds really harmless, right? Except you're blowing, and you accidentally, before you take your mouth out of it, you inhale. You can suck those embers right up through that tube, right in your mouth, right down into your lungs. You can do serious damage. I imagine if it's bad enough, you could actually kill yourself. I think this is a dangerous tool. Again, I will never put this in my bag. I would never want to risk somebody hurting themselves with this item. I would never want to see a kid try to use it. I remember when I was a Boy Scout, some of the kids had tubes they tried to use to do that with, and the Scoutmaster absolutely forbade the use of a bellows like this because they are dangerous. People can really end up in the hospital with permanent lifetime lung damage. Never go in a bag. So that's the items that I've identified that I think can have potential dangers that are in your bags. Hopefully that was helpful. Well, I hope you found that video helpful. I hope you didn't think I was too overboard with my caution, but I just think we should always stop and take a moment to think about the potential dangers in what we're doing so that we can avoid them when it becomes really, really important. So with that, we'll get ready for the next video that I'm going to do next week. And in the meantime, remember what we always say. Stay strong, stay prepared, have a blessed day. We'll see you real soon on Cowboy Survival.